let's have a talk about recession proofing our lives. So, this is not coming from a pulpit here. I don't have all the answers. What I do have is some experience of coming through several recessions in my life. I think three that I could think of. There might have been more and I just didn't know, because I was too young, but at least that. So they all were different experiences because I was a different age, a just different stage in life. So just think of this as a recession chat with Auntie T. So this is going to be a reminder if you're my age and older, and it might be new information if you're much younger and you haven't been through such things before. So I'll tell you, when I was a kid, I lived in the northeast of the United States, and we went through a pretty heavy recession. I don't know if that was the same all over the country. I don't think it was. But where I lived in I would say the mid 70s, early 70s, there was a recession, and it was really affecting it. And it had a lot to do with OPEC and oil and all this, but it was really affecting my family in my area. My dad worked construction at the time. There was a huge downshift in building and in materials, and we likely will see that again now, but eventually. But it really affected my family because my dad was an electrician and he worked on a construction team at the time, and it really shifted our life. I found out later, when I was an adult and talking with my parents about that time, really how much that really did come into play. So, like, I thought my parents were just really into wild game, but my parents assured me that we wouldn't. My dad was a really awesome outdoorsman and hunter fisher, type of person. And he went hunting a lot, during that year. And my parents assured me later, when I was an adult, that we wouldn't have ate that winter if my dad hadn't been such a good hunter and fisher, and my mom could make all this, wild game. She was a really great cook. So we had a lot of wild game and trout and, pheasant and all these things. So I just thought my parents were into really healthy eating, So, and there's a lesson in that, though, because, my parents did not constantly bombard us, as kids with this bad news. It's not that we didn't know anything, and that they, put on this pretend bubble for us. We knew there was like something going on in our country, and this is why, and these are the results, and here's how we're going to navigate through as a family. And that was so important to us as kids, just to know, what, my parents know what's going on. They're looking for ways through this. We're going to do this as a family, and we're going to be okay. And I think that's a really great message to have with your kids and your family. And if you take care of any, vulnerable adults and people, that, what, you're on this and you're figuring this out, and things might look a little different for a while, but that doesn't mean everything is falling apart, and that doesn't mean something bad. It means that a challenge is being addressed, and you are, working towards the goal of getting through this every day. So I think that's an important reminder, not to create a false narrative, but also, not to bombard people, that like kids and elderly and vulnerable people that really don't have a way to handle this all themselves and shouldn't, like kids. We're not bombarding them with bad news or what could be scary news either. So, just a few thoughts as I was reading an article this morning. It was called Recession Readiness Checklist. And it's from an article. It's been reposted in several different ways, so I don't know the origin. But it brought up a few things I wanted to share. When the economy gets shaky, preparedness is power. So take these 5 steps. And this is coming from a more financial person. So that's kind of their focus and their lens on this. Take these 5 steps to safeguard your finances. Emergency fund comes first. That's number 1. Emergency fund comes first. Have at least 3 to 6 months of basic expenses saved in an account you can access fast. And I know what you're thinking. If you are just barely hanging on there, paycheck to paycheck, which is a whole lot of us for lots of different reasons. My family hasn't even come out of the financial hit that we took during the height of the pandemic. So I got it. I hear you. So 3 to 6 months would be a really awesome goal, but that's not where we are heading into this recession. And that's who I'm really speaking to today. Because we are at the most risk, because if you're coming into a recessionary time, let's say, I don't want people at me, you know what I mean? It's not a recession, every, major CEO that I give an ear to, every financial person I think that is worth their salt that I give an ear to, all says the same thing. We're either heading in a recession or we're actually in it right now, and the data just hasn't caught up to real time. So that almost doesn't matter. The thing is, and it doesn't even always matter what's happening on Wall Street when you're boots on the ground, just making it from month to month. It's kind of like the COVID pandemic to me, in a lot of sense of that we're in the same storm but in very different boats. And if you're coming into this time with trade wars and tariff wars every other day, and you have money and you're sitting on money, this is a real opportune time for you. You can buy the dip. You can be purchasing land really cheap. You can be purchasing commercial property probably. You can be maybe buying out a business. You can be definitely buying stocks that you didn't maybe afford before. So that's a totally different scenario. So everyone else that is not in that boat has to find their way to navigate through and what's their priorities. And so I hope you, number 1, stay in community, because this is not the time to lone wolf it. This is not the time just to pull up all roots and anchors and go it alone somewhere. If you're prepared to do that and you have a bug out place and you're like, what, I don't like what's going on here, I don't like what my kids might be up against, or things like that, or you're a person that is going to be more vulnerable, to certain laws and changes and shifts, absolutely do that. But if you're not in that position and you have to ride it out, you've got to be in community and you've got to stay in community. So find your people, ask the right questions. That might be some workmates, that might be people that you have met through other things you do, where you go to the barber, where you get your hair done, your dentist office, whatever it is, your people are out there. Connect and build your network, because a bartering network is going to be worth gold to you and me in this kind of situation. So everybody has something that they can barter their time with, whether it be how to cut hair, You know how to sew. That's huge. You're a great cook. You know how to cook for a large, amount of people. You're a bread baker. You know how to do repairs on shoe. Whatever that is a barterable asset that you have. And for that asset, you can, ask something in return. So say you're not a great cook. Say you don't know how to make freezer food or canned food. That's a great skill to know how to safely can food. But you have a friend that is, and they would trade you for cleaning service or a simple car repair, whatever that is, right? You got to get creative and take inventory of what you and your family can do in your skills, and then also be in community with people that have other skills that you need. So it's building your team, it's building your network, and you're going to be okay. So coming from a finance position, though, this person is saying emergency fund comes first. So however you can stock it, whether that be in actual funds or food or, medical supplies, that's a great barter issue. Insider tip, coffee and chocolate is going to be a huge bartering item because that's going to be just so, expensive to, there's such a limited part of the world that's actually grown in. And if stock becomes short on the worldwide stage, that's going to be incredibly expensive to get in. So things like, glue, rubber, chocolate, coffee, things that are only made in specific parts of the world, cinnamon, vanilla, that becomes all the more valuable. So maybe that's things that you can be, putting in your cart. So when you're short on money and people start talking prepping, it gives you a lot of anxiety because you're like, oh my God, I don't have like all this extra money. Dollar store, fantastic place to start some prepping stocks, even if it's just some first aid gear, some household items, dish soap, they have all the things, right? Sewing kit, all of those types of things. Just buy one every couple, like, do you get paid by the day? Or do you make tips? Buy one thing, buy one thing a day, buy one thing every other day. Do you get paid by the week? Buy 3 things for your shelf. Dollar stores, canned food, they have like tuna pouches, things like that, that you can buy ahead. Paper products, definitely. Things you're not going to want to run out of, right? And you're not going to want to go to the store all the time. I mean, we should have learned that in the pandemic, of ways to stay out of the store, ways to stay out of public crowds. And in that case, it was to protect you from a virus, which we still have. If you don't know, we still have actually, COVID just took a little pop up again, and it probably will, over spring break and Easter vacation, things like that. And that's kind of a normal flow that we have. But we also have measles outbreaks. We also have, bird flu sitting there ready to run. So it's good to know. It's good to have some things. But it doesn't even have to be that dramatic. I fell and broke my hand, which was like the first broken bone I've had in my life. And so my hand, my career was my job was put on hold, because I couldn't use my hands. So during that time I was down, thank goodness, we had some things ahead, like paper products. We had some meat in the freezer. We had some canned, vegetables, things like that. And we used everything that we had. And that was great to not, have to sweat that of, oh my God, how are we going to eat this week? We could put stuff together, even if it was just soup, You can, my parents came from very poor means, and they were country folks, and country wisdom. And they could always make fantastic soup. They could always make jazz up, spaghetti. They could always jazz up macaroni and cheese, right? Those are all things you can get at the dollar store, and jazz them up with what your neighbor gives you barter wise from their garden. And maybe you're growing some just everyday stuff on your porch, right? You can do peppers, tomatoes, all of your herbs that get so expensive sometimes. All that is a really easy grow on your porch, or even inside in a sunny window. So you got to get creative. There's many ways to go about this. But the first thing we need to be thinking about is our emergency fund. And like I said, if that can't be actual money, what else is your emergency fund? Your food, your paper products, your canned food, things like that are even barter chips if you need to, right? So stock up on coffee. Number 2, eliminate costly debts. Pay down debts in high interest rates as soon as possible. There's a major drain during economic slowdowns. And I don't know if you have had this experience so far, but a lot of people's education loans, student loans, got reshuffled and resold after the pandemic had some kind of guards on there. And boom, all of a sudden, they owe all this money. Their credit scores are taking a hit. I mean, it's just awful. That is going to tend to happen during a recession. And it's like, I don't even get that. How do companies think all of a sudden you're going to have more money, during this kind of situation, but it doesn't stop them from keep coming. Don't worry about them so much, but just have the goal of getting out of debt as soon as you can. Don't put all of your money in that. You've got to have some savings. You've got to have some emergency funds. You got to be stocking up a little bit, but have that be forefront in your mind to get out of debt. All right. Simplify spending is number 3. Cut back on luxuries and stick to necessities. Every dollar saved strengthens your position. That's such good advice. I was just reading this morning about kids, that came through recessionary times. We still had fun. We didn't know, like how strapped our parents really were, because they still made fun things for us. Even if it was just a blanket in the yard and we had a movie outside, which is much easier to do now, technology-wise. Or, we went on a car trip that wasn't that far, but it felt like it, to a new park. Kids that grew up in the 60s and 70s, our parents always packed drinks and snacks, always. You always had like a tailgate party, right? Everywhere you went. We didn't know. Well, first, they wanted us to have, decent food. So they would pack our own, but also then they didn't have to buy it at the thing that we were. I remember going to a county fair with a family with a lot of kids, and they always, had like their whole, they had this like whole setup, in the back of their car. And I always thought, yeah, but don't you want to just buy drinks at the fair? And the mom looked at me like, and they didn't buy anything to eat or drink that whole weekend because they had packed enough things. And that was such a smart way to go, looking back, with that many kids, and you're not sure who has allergies to what and whatever, right? And they just, they just handled it. But that can be fun, for a kid. It's like an adventure, even if it's just you set up a little pup tent in pillows in the living room, and you have like a camp out, right? That's so much fun for a kid, and they don't know that it's a low cost option, right? Start a side hustle or passive income stream, and that's great if you can do that. Explore ways to supplement your main income. It could make all the difference. Sometimes side hustles turn into a really valuable thing in the right situation, right? So I can't tell you how many, it's a kind of a turbulent time right now, right, in our country and in our economy, and I can't tell you how many opportunities have come my way in just the last like 15, 20 days. It's unreal. I don't have a particular reason why, just that I'm open to it. I'm not walking around in fear, like my hands are open to receive, right? Because I'm not holding on to things that are just going to weigh me down. And I'm looking for ways, for others to succeed and to navigate all of this. So I've had 3 huge opportunities just come my way that I can share now with colleagues and have them have a blessing from this as well. So, it goes back to, there's a passage in Proverbs that gives us the idea, I'm really paraphrasing here, that your gifts will make room for you, meaning your gifts, your talents, the things that you've been blessed with will create opportunities for you to use them. So stay open to that, get your mind right, get your heart right. And, if you're falling, fall forward, right? I can't tell you how many times in my life I've had to do that. Fall forward, get up, shake yourself off, next step. So, side hustles and passive income streams, and be open to it, explore things, be ready to make a shift in your career, whatever it takes, right? Number 5, polish your resume and rebuild your network. Stay prepared for a career change by keeping your resume current and your connections active. And I can't tell you how much stress that's going to take off of you if you just go ahead and do that. Don't let that be an anxious thing, like, oh my God, I gotta, redo my, work on that, work on that a certain day of the week, every weekend, whatever it is. Get that resume polished up, build your network in other, related fields or totally different field, wherever it is you think you're going to head. Build your network there. Build your network like Wayne Gretzky thought of hockey. What did he teach? He wasn't worried about being where the puck is. He concerned himself with being where the puck is going to be, right? And that's why he was right there to make that play, that decision at the right time. Build your network where you want to be. Build your network where you're going, not where you are, right? So, just a few thoughts. I really think we're going to be okay. It's going to take some shifts. It's going to take some think through. It's going to take some navigating and some pinching here and there, for sure. It's going to take some give and take, and maybe, people always, I feel like, unfairly, bang the heads of young people. Well, you need to make coffee at home and not have avocado toast. Like, that's going to make all the difference in the world. But I get it. Yeah, there's some things that are not needs, right? That are nice, that are likes, that we have to give up or find other ways to do it. I found I can actually we've always made coffee at home, but I mean like fancy coffee that I like iced coffee. I have definitely found ways that I can do that, and that's great. And I have a favorite cup, and if I make my fancy coffee at home and take it in my cup, I never miss, going to the drive-thru for that. So that's just a really simple thing, but there's, really serious things too that you can learn to do or know somebody that does those things. And do you want to do something lovely? Like, grow flowers for your community this year. Grow flowers for your neighbors this year. In trade, will they leave you something that you can use, like a loaf of bread or whatever, biscuits for your dinner that night? I mean, there's all kind of ways to go here. So build your network wisely. Get out of debt. Save some emergency money or barter items. And don't miss opportunities that are right there and still coming your way. It might look so different than what you thought or what you had originally planned, but 2025 is not in any way, shape, or form for most of us what we had planned. So be open to doing things different and doing things in a new way. So if you can be that flexible and you can keep your cool and you can keep your focus, you're going to be just fine. All right. Be blessed.